The Dricknar were a powerful species, feared across the galaxy. Their empire had crushed countless civilizations, leaving behind a trail of broken worlds. The Dricknar had advanced technology, massive fleets, and warriors who knew no equal. Nothing could stand in their way. At least, that's what they thought. From their hidden base on a distant planet, the Dricknar received a report about a new planet they had never noticed before. It was a small, insignificant world, mostly covered in water and with primitive life forms. At least, that's what the report said. The Dricknar rulers had no interest in such worlds, but they were curious about this one, Earth, and its strange inhabitants. They decided to send a small reconnaissance fleet to observe, thinking the humans would be no threat. The fleet, led by Commander Raxan, entered the solar system without anyone noticing. Their ships were cloaked, blending into the darkness of space. As they approached Earth, Raxan couldn't help but feel a strange sense of anticipation. The humans, according to their records, were still in the early stages of their technological development. They had only just discovered how to fly into space. Surely, a race like this would be easy to handle. The Dricknar ships hovered above Earth, invisible to the naked eye. Their sensors scanned the planet, analyzing human technology, communication systems, and military presence. It seemed like a simple task. The humans were still relying on outdated weapons like guns and tanks, nothing compared to the Dricknar's weapons of mass destruction. But then, something unexpected happened. As the Dricknar continued their observation, they picked up signals coming from Earth, unusual signals. They were encrypted messages, military communications, but there was something off about them. Raxan ordered his fleet to monitor the transmissions more closely. "What is this?" Raxan muttered under his breath. "They are communicating like soldiers preparing for war." The commander watched intently as the human military began to mobilize. The humans were far more organized than the Dricknar had expected. Their military was scattered across the world, but they were coordinating across continents, exchanging information faster than the Dricknar had anticipated. The aliens couldn't believe what they were seeing. "They've noticed us," Raxan said, his voice cold and steady. But inside, he was beginning to worry. "Activate our cloaking systems. We cannot let them discover our fleet." But it was too late. The humans had already begun tracking their movements, using radar and satellites to pinpoint the exact location of the Dricknar ships. Raxan had underestimated their capability. "Commander, we've been detected," one of his officers shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "They're preparing weapons. We need to retreat." Raxan's fists clenched. The humans had no spacefaring technology that could rival the Dricknar's, yet they had found a way to track their fleet. It was an impressive feat. Something about humanity made the Dricknar uneasy. But Raxan refused to show fear. He was a seasoned warrior, a commander who had led his people to victory over countless civilizations. He would not be intimidated by a primitive species. "Do not retreat," he barked. "We'll show them who we are. Let them know the might of the Dricknar." The fleet descended from their hiding place and began their assault. They fired lasers and plasma bolts from their ships, expecting to wipe out whatever human resistance there might be. They believed the humans would crumble in the face of such overwhelming power. But once again, they were wrong. On Earth, the humans had already launched their own counterattack. It wasn't much. Just a few military bases with outdated missile systems and a handful of fighter jets. However, the humans fought back with ferocity. The Dricknar ships, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, began to take hits. The human weapons, while nowhere near as advanced as the Dricknar's, were effective enough to damage the alien ships. One of the Dricknar vessels, struck by a missile, exploded in a flash of light. Raxan's heart raced, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. How could humans, with their primitive weapons, have done this? "Retreat," Raxan finally ordered, unable to ignore the damage any longer. "We'll return to the fleet and reassess." The Dricknar ships quickly pulled back, but the humans were relentless. The skies above Earth were filled with missiles and jet fighters, all aimed at the Dricknar fleet. Despite their retreat, the humans refused to let the aliens escape without a fight. Once the fleet had returned to the safety of deep space, Raxan's officers stood in stunned silence. The damage to their ships was minor, but the fact that humans had fought back at all was troubling. They had underestimated Earth's inhabitants, and now they knew they were facing something far different than they had expected. "We've made a mistake," Raxan muttered, staring out at the stars. "These humans, they're not like the others. They won't be easy to conquer." Back on Earth, the humans were celebrating their victory. They had repelled the alien threat, but they knew this was just the beginning. The Dricknar were still out there, watching, waiting, and the humans were ready for whatever came next. After their retreat, the Dricknar were shaken. The humans had surprised them. They had never encountered a species that fought back with such determination and unexpected skill. Commander Raxan paced nervously in the command room aboard the fleet's flagship. His mind raced as he reviewed the events. The humans were not as primitive as they had believed. "We need more information," Raxan muttered to himself, staring at the star map before him. "We cannot underestimate them again." His officers were quiet, their faces tense. They were used to victory, used to crushing their enemies without much thought. But this time, they had met resistance. "Commander," one of the officers spoke up. "What should we do next? Should we attack again?" Raxan looked at the officer, his eyes cold. "No, we will not attack directly again. Not yet. We need to understand how they were able to detect us and fight back. We need to understand how they think." The Dricknar were known for their patience, but now their patience was wearing thin. They could not afford to make the same mistake twice. The humans had proven that they were far more capable than they appeared. The decision was made to send another group of Dricknar agents to Earth, this time under the guise of being human. They would infiltrate and gather intelligence. This was a dangerous move. If the humans discovered the spies, it could lead to a full-scale war. But Raxan felt it was necessary. They had to know what they were dealing with. The operation began quickly. The Dricknar spies were equipped with advanced cloaking technology, allowing them to blend in with the humans without detection. They arrived on Earth at different locations, posing as ordinary people. Their mission was simple: gather intelligence and learn as much as they could about human society, technology, and military tactics. The Dricknar agents spread across the globe, blending in seamlessly with the human population. They observed the humans from within, watching how they lived, how they worked, and how they interacted with each other. The spies quickly discovered something that made them uneasy. The humans were not just united by their ability to fight, but by something even more powerful: their sense of purpose. The Dricknar had never seen anything like it. The humans were driven by a deep need to protect their world and their people. They didn't fight out of hatred or greed, but out of a fierce desire to survive, to thrive, and to protect what was theirs. This gave them a power that the Dricknar had not anticipated. One of the spies, disguised as a human soldier, was able to observe a major human military meeting. The humans were discussing strategies to defend their world, sharing ideas and plans across countries. Despite the different languages and cultures, the humans worked together as one, united in a common cause. The spy was stunned by their coordination, their unity. How can they do this? The Dricknar spy wondered. How do they communicate so effectively? How do they work together in such a complex way? The humans seemed to have an almost instinctive ability to unite, to overcome their differences, and to face challenges head-on. This was something the Dricknar had never seen before. In their empire, unity was enforced by power and fear, not by mutual respect and understanding. The spy returned to the Dricknar fleet with troubling news. The humans were not just strong physically. They were strong in ways the Dricknar had not considered. The spy reported that human culture was based on cooperation, creativity, and an unwavering will to survive. They fight for more than just victory. the spy said, his voice tense. They fight for each other. They fight for their families, for their communities, and for their future. It's not just war they are waging, but a battle for their very existence. Raxen listened carefully to the report. The more he learned about the humans, the more he realized how much they had underestimated them. The Driknar were skilled warriors, but the humans' ability to adapt, to innovate, and to work together as a unified force was something the aliens hadn't counted on. "We must take caution," Raxen said, his voice grim. "If we underestimate them again, it will be our downfall. These humans are not like the others we have conquered." As the Driknar continued to observe, they learned more about human technology. While the humans had not yet mastered the advanced weapons of spacefaring civilizations, they had developed powerful systems of communication, surveillance, and coordination that allowed them to remain one step ahead of their enemies. The Driknar were still watching from the shadows, but they were growing more concerned with each passing day. The more they saw of humanity, the more they realized that their usual tactics would not work here. They couldn't simply invade and conquer. Humans would fight back. They would adapt. They would find a way to defeat the Driknar. But just as the Driknar were beginning to recognize the humans' strength, something unexpected happened. The humans, aware that they had been under observation, began to make changes. They adapted their defenses, improved their technology, and grew more prepared for whatever might come next. Raxen's mind raced. It was clear now that the humans were more dangerous than he had ever imagined. They were not only surviving, they were evolving, becoming more resilient with each new challenge. The Driknar had thought they could easily overpower a primitive species. Now they realized that humanity's true strength lay not just in their weapons, but in their spirit. The Driknar knew that they had to decide quickly. They could either retreat, acknowledging that the humans were too strong to conquer, or they could press forward, risking everything in an attempt to defeat a species unlike any they had ever faced before. As Raxen stood at the command center, staring at the screens, he knew one thing for sure. Whatever decision they made, the humans would be ready. Commander Raxen stood in the command center, his fingers tapping nervously on the control panel. The Driknar fleet had been hiding in the shadows for weeks, watching Earth from a distance, but nothing they had seen had made them feel at ease. If anything, it had the opposite effect. The more they learned about humanity, the more they realized they had underestimated them. Raxen turned to his officers, his face stern. "We have seen their military power, but now we must understand their true strength. We need to see how they fight, how they think, and how they adapt." The Driknar had thought that their advanced technology would be enough to crush the humans in a single strike. But after their first encounter, they knew that simply relying on firepower wouldn't work. The humans had fought back in ways that the Driknar hadn't expected, using everything at their disposal, from old-fashioned missiles to military drones, and even their most primitive weapons. It was as if the humans were always prepared for whatever came their way. "What makes them so dangerous?" Raxen muttered. "How do they keep surprising us?" As the days passed, the Driknar watched Earth closely, and what they observed was nothing short of remarkable. The humans had an unshakable belief in their ability to overcome any obstacle. They were not just warriors, they were survivors. Every time something seemed to push them to the brink, they found a way to rise again, stronger than before. One of the spies returned from Earth with an alarming report. The Driknar agent had been among the humans for weeks, posing as a worker in one of their largest cities. He had watched, listened, and learned. What he discovered shook him to his core. The humans didn't just rely on military power or technology to win. They relied on something far more powerful: their minds. "They adapt faster than we thought," the spy said, his voice filled with awe. "They can solve problems on the fly, using their surroundings in ways we never imagined. It's as if they are constantly learning and evolving, even in the middle of a battle." Raxen listened closely. The spy's report confirmed what he had feared. The humans weren't simply surviving. They were growing, changing, and becoming more dangerous with each passing day. The Dricknar had always believed that intelligence was a weapon in itself. They prided themselves on their ability to outthink their enemies, to stay one step ahead. But what they hadn't anticipated was how quickly the humans could learn, adapt, and counter anything thrown their way. The spy continued. I witnessed a human engineer repair an entire missile defense system in less than an hour. They used parts from their own vehicles, old equipment they found in abandoned storage units, and improvised weapons. It was like they could turn anything into a tool for survival. Raxan was silent for a moment, processing this information. He had known the humans were resourceful, but this was something entirely different. It wasn't just about using what was available. It was about thinking outside the box, about finding solutions when the odds were stacked against them. What else? Raxan asked, his voice sharp. The spy hesitated before speaking again. I saw them during a crisis, Commander. A city was under attack, and they were outnumbered, outgunned. But the humans didn't retreat. Instead, they gathered together, organized in ways we never expected. They used their knowledge of the environment, their understanding of human psychology, and their teamwork to outsmart the enemy. Raxan frowned. You're saying they used psychology and the environment to their advantage? The spy nodded. Yes, they didn't just fight with weapons. They fought with their minds. They created distractions, set traps, and used their surroundings to outmaneuver the enemy. It was as if they could anticipate every move before it even happened. Raxan felt a chill run down his spine. The humans were not just clever, they were tactical geniuses, and they didn't rely on one form of power. They used everything at their disposal. The Dricknar had been too focused on firepower and military might. They had failed to see that the humans were a different kind of enemy, one that fought with unity, intelligence, and an unstoppable drive to survive. As Raxan pondered this new information, a new communication came in from the Dricknar leadership. They were growing impatient. The Dricknar had sent their best forces to deal with Earth, but each attempt had failed. The humans kept fighting back, and the losses were starting to add up. The leadership was beginning to question whether the conquest of Earth was worth the cost. They are becoming more trouble than they're worth, one of the Dricknar generals said in the transmission. Perhaps it's time to abandon this mission and move on to easier targets. Raxan could feel the pressure mounting. The leadership's impatience was growing, and he knew that if he didn't deliver results soon, they would lose faith in him. But abandoning the mission wasn't an option. He had already seen the human strength. If they gave up now, they would leave a powerful enemy behind them, one that might one day come back to haunt them. No, Raxan said firmly, his voice unwavering. We will not retreat. We will learn from our mistakes, and we will defeat them. We cannot let a species like this survive. If we do, they will become a threat to the entire galaxy. But even as he spoke the words, Raxan couldn't shake the feeling that he was underestimating the humans once again. They had already proven themselves more resilient than the Dricknar had imagined, and now they were showing an ability to think and adapt in ways that the aliens had never expected. The Dricknar fleet remained in orbit, watching Earth from the shadows, but the fear was growing. What if the humans were more than they could handle? What if they could fight back in ways the Dricknar had never prepared for? Raxan's resolve hardened. We will fight, he muttered to himself. But we will need more than just weapons. We need to understand them, every move they make, every thought they have. Only then will we be able to defeat them. As the Dricknar waited, humanity was continuing to grow stronger. The humans were more than just survivors. They were beginning to realize the true power of their unity and intelligence. The Dricknar might have superior technology, but the humans had something far more dangerous: the ability to learn, adapt, and use everything around them to their advantage. And that, Raxan knew, could change everything. The Dricknar fleet hovered silently in the dark expanse of space, watching Earth from a distance. Commander Raxan's mind was still grappling with the reality of what the humans had shown him. He had always believed that the Dricknar were invincible, that their technological superiority would be enough to crush any opposition. But the humans had proven him wrong time and time again. Every day, the humans seemed to adapt, to grow stronger in ways that defied logic. Raxen had watched them turn every defeat into an opportunity, each challenge into a lesson. Their ability to learn and adapt was not just impressive, it was terrifying. The Driknar had never faced anything like this before. As Raxen stood in the command center, the communication console beeped. A message from the Driknar leadership appeared on the screen. His eyes narrowed as he read the transmission. "Commander Raxen," the message began, "we have given you ample time to handle the human situation. The losses are mounting, and our resources are being stretched thin. If you cannot conquer this planet within the next 2 weeks, we will consider abandoning the mission." Raxen clenched his fists in frustration. He could feel the weight of his leadership bearing down on him. The Driknar leadership was growing impatient, and their threats were not idle. He had already seen how ruthless they could be, and he knew that if he failed now, it could be the end of his career, and possibly his life. He turned to his officers, who were waiting for his orders. "Prepare the fleet. We'll launch another strike against Earth. This time, we'll hit them hard. We'll break their defenses and make them understand that we are not to be underestimated." His officers exchanged uncertain glances, but none dared to speak against their commander. The Driknar had a deep respect for strength and power, and Raxen had always been seen as one of their finest leaders. But even he could not deny the growing fear that gnawed at him. The humans were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for something more. "I want all ships to be ready for immediate deployment," Raxen ordered. "We leave in 1 hour." The Driknar fleet began to mobilize. Massive ships hummed with energy as they powered up their weapons. Raxen watched the preparations with a mixture of determination and dread. He knew that this strike could determine everything. If the humans fought back as they had before, the Driknar would be forced to rethink their entire strategy. But if they succeeded, they could crush humanity once and for all. As the fleet prepared to leave orbit, Raxen stood on the bridge, staring out at Earth. His mind was still racing, but one thought kept repeating itself. The humans are more than just survivors. They are learning to fight us, and that is a power we cannot ignore. Back on Earth, the situation was tense. The humans had long known that the Driknar were watching them, waiting for the right moment to strike. But the humans were not afraid. Instead, they had spent every day since the first attack preparing. They had studied the Driknar's weapons, their tactics, and their technology. Every nation, every community was working together to face the threat. The world had never been so united. Political leaders, scientists, and military commanders from across the globe were meeting in secret to formulate a strategy. They knew that they couldn't just rely on their existing military power. The Driknar had superior weapons, ships, and technology. But humanity had something the aliens did not: their unbreakable will to protect their planet and each other. "We need to hit them where it hurts," said General Lucas King, one of the top military leaders in the human coalition. He was speaking to a group of scientists and military strategists in a secure command room. "We can't match their firepower, but we can outsmart them. We need to use their own technology against them." Dr. Emily Tan, a leading scientist, nodded in agreement. "We've studied their ships, their communication systems, and their weapons. We know how they work. What we need now is to find a way to disable their fleet before they reach the planet's surface." The plan they came up with was risky. They would need to launch a series of surprise attacks, using the Driknar's own tactics against them. The humans would exploit the aliens' weaknesses, creating chaos and confusion in their ranks. It would take everything they had, and more. The humans spent the next few days preparing for the attack. They built new weapons, repaired old systems, and trained soldiers and civilians alike. It didn't matter whether they were soldiers or engineers or farmers. They all had a part to play. Humanity was united as one. When the Driknar fleet finally arrived in Earth's atmosphere, they found a very different planet than they had expected. The humans were ready. As Rexen's fleet descended toward Earth, they saw the sky light up with flashes of energy. The first wave of human fighters appeared, flying at incredible speeds and attacking with weapons that seemed to defy the Driknar's advanced sensors. The Driknar ships tried to fight back, but the humans were relentless, hitting them from unexpected angles, using tactics the aliens had never encountered before. Rexen watched in shock as his fleet began to take hits. The human weapons were not as powerful as the Driknar's, but they were precise and deadly. Missiles exploded on impact, and the alien ships were forced to break formation. The humans had successfully thrown them off balance. "They're fighting back again," one of Rexen's officers shouted. Rexen gritted his teeth. "Don't let them push us back. We will crush them. We cannot allow this to continue." But even as he gave the order to retaliate, he knew the truth. The humans were not just fighting. They were winning. With every attack, they were gaining more ground, and it was becoming clear that no matter how much firepower the Driknar had, they couldn't break the human resolve. As Rexen looked down at Earth, he realized that the turning point had come. The humans were no longer just defending their planet. They were taking the fight to them. And if the Driknar didn't find a way to stop them soon, they would find themselves in a war they could not win. The Driknar fleet had underestimated humanity, but now they were learning the hard way. Commander Rexen watched as his ships were attacked from every direction. Human fighters swarmed around his fleet, launching missiles and blasting energy weapons with precision. The Driknar ships, though powerful, were struggling to keep up. The humans weren't fighting a traditional battle. They were fighting with strategy and intelligence. And they were winning. "Report." Rexen barked to his officers as explosions rang out around them. "Why are we being outmaneuvered?" "We can't track them, Commander," one of the officers replied, panic in his voice. "Their ships are too fast, and they keep changing their tactics. It's like they know exactly where we're going to strike." Rexen's eyes narrowed as he watched the battle unfold. The humans weren't just relying on their technology. They were thinking several steps ahead. Their attacks were unpredictable, almost as if they could anticipate the Driknar's every move. This was unlike anything the Driknar had ever encountered. "We need to adapt," Rexen said, his voice cold. "Change the formation. Activate countermeasures. We'll stop them." But the more they tried to fight back, the more the humans seemed to have an answer. Driknar ships that were once confident and dominating were now being overwhelmed. Human drones darted through the air, attacking weak points on the ships with perfect accuracy. The Driknar were losing control of the skies, and Rexen could feel the pressure mounting. Back on Earth, General Lucas King watched the battle with a mix of awe and determination. His plan was working. The Driknar fleet was confused, out of sync, and their attacks were becoming less coordinated. It was a testament to the humans' ability to think and adapt in real time. "It's working," General King said, turning to Dr. Emily Tan, who stood beside him in the command center. "They're falling apart, but we can't let up. We need to keep pushing." Dr. Tan nodded, her face serious. "We need to hit their command ship. If we can disable it, we can throw the entire fleet into chaos. Rexen is leading them, and if we can take him out, the Driknar will lose their focus." The plan was simple but risky. They needed to break through the Driknar defenses and strike at the heart of their operation, but they had to move quickly. Time was running out. General King turned to his team. "Prepare a team of elite fighters. We'll go for the command ship. Everyone else, keep the pressure on their fleet. We can't let them regroup." As the human fighters continued to engage the Driknar, a special task force was formed. The team consisted of the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers, each one ready to do whatever it took to strike at the heart of the Driknar invasion. They were outnumbered, but they had something the Driknar didn't: the will to fight for their home. "We're ready," said Captain Leah Carter, the leader of the elite task force. "Let's finish this." With that, they launched into the skies, flying toward the Dricknar command ship. The battle was raging above them, but the task force focused on their mission. They knew that taking down the Dricknar leadership would cripple the entire invasion. As they approached the command ship, the Dricknar fleet tried to retaliate. But the humans were relentless. They dodged incoming fire, using the debris from fallen ships as cover. Their pilots performed daring maneuvers, pushing the limits of their ship's capabilities. It was a test of skill, courage, and determination. Inside the command ship, Raxen felt the pressure mounting. His officers were scrambling to regain control of the situation, but the humans were everywhere. The comms were filled with urgent reports from the fleet, all of them saying the same thing. The humans were not backing down. "Commander, we've lost contact with several ships," an officer said, panic rising in his voice. "The fleet is in disarray." Raxen's jaw clenched. He couldn't let this happen. He couldn't afford to fail. But the humans were relentless, and he knew now that they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something bigger. They were fighting for their planet, for their families, for their future. With one final push, the human task force broke through the Dricknar defenses and reached the command ship. The Dricknar fired everything they had at the approaching ships, but the humans were too fast. They blasted through the ship's outer defenses and entered the heart of the Dricknar command vessel. Inside, Raxen watched as the human fighters closed in on their target. His officers scrambled to stop them, but it was too late. Captain Leah Carter's team breached the command center, and within minutes they were disabling the Dricknar command systems. The once powerful fleet was now crippled, and Raxen knew it was only a matter of time before the humans would have full control. "This is it," Raxen muttered under his breath, staring at the chaos unfolding on his command screen. "We've lost." The human task force quickly disabled the last of the Dricknar's systems, and the fleet was thrown into confusion. The remaining ships were left stranded in space, vulnerable and leaderless. The humans had won. On Earth, the skies cleared as the last Dricknar ship was destroyed. The humans had managed to break through the Dricknar defenses and strike at the heart of the invasion, and now the planet was safe. But even in victory, the humans knew that this was only the beginning. The Dricknar were powerful, but humanity had something they could never defeat: unity, determination, and the will to fight. General King looked out over the battlefield, his face grim but proud. "We've done it," he said, "but we need to stay ready. There will be more battles ahead." The once mighty Dricknar fleet had been reduced to chaos. Their command ship had been crippled, and their remaining forces were scattered, vulnerable, and leaderless. Commander Raxen, the one who had once stood confidently at the helm of the fleet, was now a broken figure, staring out at the wreckage of his failed invasion. He knew that the Dricknar would not give up easily, but he also knew that the humans had just dealt them a devastating blow. Raxen sat in the darkened command room of the last remaining Dricknar ship, his mind racing. He had underestimated the humans, and now the price for that mistake was becoming clear. The fleet had been shattered, and Earth's defenders were celebrating a victory they had earned through sheer determination. "Commander," one of the remaining officers said, breaking Raxen's thoughts, "what are your orders?" Raxen's eyes flickered with determination. He couldn't let this be the end. If the Dricknar were to retreat now, they would risk leaving Earth behind with a growing power that could one day threaten the entire galaxy. There was only one option left. "We will not retreat," Raxen said firmly, his voice low but steady. "We'll launch one final assault. If we're going down, we will take them down with us." The officer hesitated but nodded. The Dricknar might have lost their commanding ship, but they still had a fleet, and Raxen was prepared to use it in a desperate final push. On Earth, General Lucas King had gathered his forces for the final phase of the battle. The victory was close, but they knew the Dricknar would never give up without a fight. The Dricknar fleet was still strong, and Raxen's desperation made him even more dangerous. The humans couldn't let their guard down now. "They're not giving up," General King said, his voice grim. We need to keep pressing them. They might try one last assault. It's going to be risky. Dr. Emily Tan, who had been working alongside the military, looked over the latest intelligence. They're regrouping. We've hit them hard, but they're preparing for a final attack. They'll come at us with everything they have left. We'll be ready, General King said, his eyes determined. We fought this far. We won't back down now. The next few hours were filled with intense preparation. The humans had their weapons ready, their fighters in position, and their defenses locked down. Everyone knew that this would be the final fight, the one that would determine the future of Earth. Victory was within their grasp, but it was far from assured. Rexen watched as his fleet began to form up for the final assault. He knew that this would be a battle to the death. If they couldn't break through the human defenses now, the Dricknar would have no hope of conquering Earth. He had no choice but to put everything on the line. Prepare the fleet, Rexen ordered, his voice steely. We launch at once. We cannot afford to hesitate. The Dricknar ships moved into position, their weapons powering up. The final assault was imminent. Back on Earth, the skies darkened as the Dricknar fleet prepared to make their final move. Human fighters soared through the atmosphere, intercepting incoming missiles and scanning for any signs of weakness in the Dricknar formation. The final battle was about to begin. We need to hit them before they hit us, Captain Leah Carter said, her voice tight with concentration. If they reach Earth's surface, we're done. General King nodded. All units, prepare for the final strike. We're not giving them an inch. The humans' forces took position, the tension building as the Dricknar fleet neared. Every ship, every pilot, every soldier knew what was at stake. There would be no retreat, no second chances. The next few minutes would decide everything. The Dricknar ships descended, their weapons blazing. The humans responded in kind, their fighters darting around the alien ships, firing precision missiles and energy blasts. The battle had begun. Rexen's fleet came in fast and hard, unleashing a barrage of missiles that streaked toward Earth's atmosphere. The human fighters scrambled to intercept, but the Dricknar were relentless. Every time a missile was shot down, another one followed. It was a never-ending wave of destruction. General King's voice came over the comms. We need to hit their central command unit. We need to end this now. Captain Carter led the charge, her squadron darting in and out of the enemy fire. The human ships were nimble, their pilots skilled in maneuvering through the chaos. They targeted weak points in the Dricknar ships, hitting them where it hurt. But despite their best efforts, the Dricknar kept coming, relentless as ever. The battle seemed to stretch on forever, with neither side giving an inch. Explosions shook the ground as missiles collided with Earth's defenses. The Dricknar fleet was desperate, but the humans were just as determined. Then, in the heart of the battle, a breakthrough came. Captain Carter and her team managed to breach the Dricknar's defense perimeter. They flew into the heart of the fleet, dodging incoming fire and blasting their way through the remaining Dricknar fighters. Rexen watched as his ships were slowly torn apart by the relentless human assault. His officers were shouting orders, trying to regain control, but it was too late. The humans had found their opening. "Commander, we're losing." One of the officers yelled. "We can't hold on any longer." Rexen clenched his fists, a deep sense of rage and frustration boiling inside him. He had given everything for this invasion, but now it was all slipping away. The humans had proven themselves to be far more resilient than he had ever imagined. "We will not surrender," Rexen roared. "We fight until the end." But even as he spoke those words, he knew the truth. The Dricknar had lost. The humans had won. And Earth, against all odds, had survived. As Rexen's ship was hit one final time, he realized there was nothing left to do. The Dricknar had been defeated. The humans had not just survived, they had conquered. And the galaxy would never forget the day that humanity stood against a force they could not defeat. On Earth, the battle finally ended. The Dricknar fleet had been destroyed, and their invasion was over. The humans had held their ground, and the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. But General King knew that this was just the beginning. The humans had shown that they were not just survivors, they were warriors. And no matter what came next, they would be ready. The sky above Earth was quiet now. The chaos of the battle had finally settled, and the last remnants of the Dricknar fleet were gone. General Lucas King stood on the balcony of the command center, staring out at the horizon. The battle had been won, but the price had been high. Thousands of lives had been lost on both sides, but humanity had stood firm. They had not only survived, they had triumphed. "We did it," Dr. Emily Tan said, walking up beside him. Her face was weary, but there was a glint of pride in her eyes. "The Dricknar are finished. Earth is safe." General King nodded, but his expression was heavy. "We've won this battle, but the war is far from over. We can't forget that." The truth of his words weighed on them both. The Dricknar had been driven back, but their defeat wouldn't stop others from coming. There were still many unknowns in the vastness of space. The victory over the Dricknar has shown humanity's strength, but it had also revealed how fragile their position was. They had defended their planet, but the galaxy was much bigger than they had ever realized. "The Dricknar were just the beginning," King said. "This victory is only a small part of what's to come. We need to be prepared for what might follow." Dr. Tan looked out over the peaceful horizon. "We've proven ourselves. The rest of the galaxy knows that now. No one will underestimate humanity again." King turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "I hope you're right, but we can't just wait for the next enemy to show up. We need to take the fight to them. We need to be ready, not just as a planet, but as a species." Dr. Tan nodded slowly, her mind racing with possibilities. She knew the work ahead of them would be endless. New technologies, new alliances, new strategies. Everything would need to be reevaluated. Humanity had fought hard to protect their home, but now it was time to build for the future. In the aftermath of the battle, the world began to rebuild. The human spirit, unbroken by the war, surged forward. Cities that had been damaged in the conflict were repaired. People worked together to heal the wounds left by the invasion. There were celebrations in the streets, but there was also a quiet determination in the air. The humans had faced destruction, but they had come out stronger on the other side. While the rest of the world celebrated, there were still those who couldn't forget the threat that had almost wiped them out. Earth's leaders met in secret, discussing what needed to be done next. General King was among them, helping to form a new plan for Earth's future. "We've learned so much in these past few months," King said in the meeting. "We can't afford to wait for another invasion to teach us what we need to know. We need to be proactive, not just reactive." One of the leaders, President Anna Rivers, spoke up. "We've already begun to develop new technologies, but we need more. We need to build a force that's capable of defending Earth and of taking the fight to other threats should they come." The room fell silent as everyone considered her words. The human race had just fought off an alien invasion, but now they had to think beyond survival. They had to think about the future. "We will build a fleet," King said, his voice firm. "A fleet that can defend us and our allies. And we will train our people, not just soldiers, but civilians, engineers, scientists. Everyone will be a part of this. The next time we face an enemy, we won't be caught off guard." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the news of the Dricknar defeat was spreading. Raxen's final stand had sent shockwaves through the alien empire. The Dricknar had always seen themselves as the superior race, invincible in their technology and power. But the humans had shattered that illusion. Earth had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of. On a distant planet, in a dark and forgotten corner of space, a group of alien leaders sat around a holographic table. They had watched the battle unfold from the safety of their own worlds, and now they were speaking in hushed tones. "They did it," one of the leaders said, his voice full of disbelief. They defeated the Draknar. Another leader nodded, and not just by surviving. They fought back, and they won. We underestimated them. There was a long pause as the leaders considered the implications. The humans were no longer just another primitive species. They were a force to be reckoned with. What will we do about it? One leader asked. We need to know more, said another. The humans are not just survivors. They are strategists, innovators, and warriors. If we are to make any move, we must be certain. They must be watched, a third leader added. We cannot allow them to grow too strong. Back on Earth, the next generation of humanity was already being prepared for the challenges ahead. Children were taught not just to defend, but to explore, to learn, and to grow. The message was clear. Humanity's future was bright, but it would not be without struggle. Captain Leah Carter, one of the heroes of the battle, visited schools, speaking to young students. You are the future of Earth, she told them. It's your responsibility to carry on what we've started, to protect this world, and ensure that the mistakes of the past are never repeated. The children looked up at her with awe, eager to become part of something greater than themselves. The spirit of humanity's victory lived on in them, and they would carry it forward into the future. General King stood on the steps of the rebuilt command center, looking out at the city below. The streets were full of people, and the hum of life had returned. But now, Earth had become a beacon of hope in the galaxy. The victory over the Draknar was a symbol of what humanity could accomplish when they stood together. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. The humans had fought for their survival, and now they would fight for their place in the stars. They were no longer just a young species struggling to survive. They were a power, and the galaxy would soon learn that humanity would not be pushed around. As General King looked up at the stars, he knew that the future was uncertain. But one thing was clear: humanity was ready for whatever came next.